I'm one of the founders of Missouri and Kansas chapter of Copblock. I just wanted to give kind of a brief update, rundown of what I'm going through with the state currently in regards to a victimless crime, basically. When a crime, sorry, I shouldn't even call it that. When I initially started brainstorming for this video, I intended just going into detail of the interactions I have with the costumed individuals that were harassing my neighbors and I. And while I am touching base on that and requesting support from local cop blockers and liberty lovers, I've decided to kind of take a slightly different approach to it, because I feel the specifics are almost irrelevant to the fact that I do not believe in victimless crime. And there are countless others going through similar shakedowns by the overbearing father figure, like government that, insists on staking a claim to and right to our property, resources, and even our freedom. So real briefly, I'm going to go over what happened this winter while making breakfast for my family. I noticed that there were heavily armed men with bulletproof vests on, combing through my neighbors' yards, and even going as far as to peeking in windows. For safety, accountability, and transparency purposes, I felt an obligation to record them, follow them around, and question why they felt entitled to behave in such a manner, as I felt it was quite rude and intrusive. I was then informed that they were just doing their job, and that their boss said it was code violation day. I was then informed that I was also required to store some of my property elsewhere, and that I must remove my tires that were in my yard because I had intended to use them as planters this spring to become more self-sufficient and attempt to grow my own food for my family. And anyone who knows me can probably imagine just how the rest of this conversation went. I have since decided to focus more on my reaction to these, charges and my thought process behind it. When discussing this situation with friends in the past, I've kind of taken a lighthearted approach to it, laugh a little bit about it, almost jokingly. But the reality of the situation is that it's not a joke, it's not a joke. Men with guns were sent to my family's home. So if we are too intimidated and conditioned to stand up and say something as simple as, hey, this is wrong, I'm a peaceful person, I've not done anything wrong, I've not harmed anyone, then we are all going to have some really serious explaining and apologizing to do to our children and future generations for that matter. There's a Latin quote that's been interpreted different ways and repeated by many different people that is something to the effect of, to remain silent is consent. And I thought a lot about that when kind of creating my outline on how I wanted this video to go. That Latin quote really resonates well with me, and I'll try to kind of explain why. If the state is going to send men with guns to your house for tires in your yard, or collecting rainwater, or possessing plants, or any of that, what kind of world are we really leaving our children in? By continuing to humor these absurd allegations of victimless crimes, we are condoning it, and then supporting it. I, for one, will not have my children burdened with the memory of knowing their mother ignored or turned a blind eye out of fear or convenience, and thus enabling and supporting this 1984-like reality, that is very real for them, that they're going to have to suffer through long after we are here to protect them. That's not something I can do. It's not something I can do. That is not the example I will be, setting for my offspring. Bullying people, stealing from people, initiating force against people, lying, these things are wrong. And I don't need laws or men with guns or cages or religious texts, for that matter, to come to the conclusions that, to come to these conclusions. And I don't believe that my children will either. So in response to concerns that I've received in regards to, why on earth would you not just take the plea deal? It's just so minute, just take the plea deal. You have 3 babies. What kind of mother would risk going to jail over just, paying the fine? Well, my response is this: what kind of good mother wouldn't? What kind of mother or person, for that matter, would I be to knowingly cower and give my children's resources away to a criminal regime that I know for a fact is violent and immoral? I'm a lot of things, but I will say this. I'm not a liar. I'm not a bad person, and I'm definitely not a coward. And I will not be taking the plea deal. So July 9th, 2013 at 6:30 p.m., I'm going to trial for having tires I was turning into planters in my yard. Really. I requested a jury trial in hopes of being judged by my peers, as I thought was granted to me, within these arbitrary political boundaries supposedly ruled by the, Constitution. But the man in the black dress, who insists on being referred to as the Honorable Judge Gary Helm, sneered at me, basically laughed, and informed me that my case was not serious enough to warrant a jury trial. That I would have to wait for when I appeal, not if, but when. Almost insinuating in his tone of voice that he already knew exactly how he was going to rule on the matter, and this stranger that I have never met is basically telling me that he has decided he is entitled to extort money from my family over a non-crime regarding some ordinance, city code, policy, whatever that I've never seen, heard of, let alone consented to. I understand that whether I have a jury trial or not, that I will likely be found guilty. The reason I want a jury trial is mostly that, while representing myself, I'll at least be exposing these people to better ideas of what is moral, what is a crime, and what a free country might actually look like. So no, I'm not going to this thinking that I'm going to win. I intend to, if found guilty, and I probably will, to offer to do volunteer work or community service, any of these things, which I do anyways, And I also realized that by refusing to give my Federal Reserve notes or family's resources basically over to the court due to my own moral objections, that this is questioning or challenging his supposed authority and the entity that he represents. And I will likely be kidnapped and caged by a gang of heavily armed men with costumes and badges on, for the equivalent of time that they deem to represent the $500 they feel entitled to because of my recycling project. I would rather spend twice that amount on toys and child care, for the time that I'm caged, bluntly, and I will. I would. Do I want to go to jail? Of course not. Am I nervous? Yes, of course I am. Would it be easier and less time consuming and maybe even less stressful just, take the plea deal, plead guilty, pay them a relatively small amount? Of course. But since when is doing what is easy and convenient what is right? That's not the example I will set for my children. So regardless of the outcome, I know that I am following my heart and doing what I feel is morally sound. So really, who is the criminal? Who is a threat to society? Me, a single mom trying to grow food in her front yard, who's hurting nobody, or people that are kidnapping, caging, and stealing from peaceful people? Who's the criminal? Who do you feel threatened by? So really, what kind of mom would go to jail over paying a bribe? Well, one that intends to instill principles, morality, and the basics of true liberty into her children by example. I own myself. I am a good person. I have not done anything wrong, and I have hurt no one. I do not have a dictator, and I will not be bullied into acknowledging that I do. And that is exactly why I will not be taking a plea deal. This country has 25% of the world's prison population, many for victimless crime. People farming, basically, literally. And it is time to wake the fuck up. It really is. Look around, people. 25% of the world's prison population for crimes where people have hurt no one, maybe themselves. That's their right. I don't know. That's what I believe. And I will be able to look my children in the eyes and say that I tried to make a safer, healthier, better environment for them to grow up and live in. Will you?